Welcome back to another edition of Holding Court with the coach Todd Dagenais. I'm Jeff Sharon. UCF Volleyball coming off of a difficult weekend up north in Tennessee as the Knights fell in all three matches at the Chattanooga Classic. And Coach, I know it's tough, coming off of three matches where especially you had leads in 8 out of the 9 sets. And we were talking about earlier, it's difficult, but now we're heading into conference play. We'll get into those matches a little bit more in depth in a second, but tell me where your team is right now in terms of between the years. What do they emotionally feel like they could have accomplished that maybe they didn't this weekend?
Well, that's always something that you worry about as a coach is, how are we between the years? And I can confidently tell you that we're okay. We're not okay with losing. That's not something that we're, crazy about. And we're not too crazy about the manner in which we lost. As you said, in 8 of the 9 sets, we had the lead at 20. And now those are the kinds of things that happen with inexperienced players. And we know that, and that's not an excuse. And all we can really try to do is hope that they get in more situations where they have a breakthrough and they become completely confident. And I think for us, we're starting to identify, some of the stressors that are involved. And the reality is we have a team that tries too hard. That's the bottom line. Is we have a team that's trying too hard. And I think we empower them to stay within themselves and stay within our system and not worry so much about how you're going to play points 1 through 20 and points 20 through 25. We play the same. And I think once we get back to that mentality, we're going to have that ability to close out those tight sets again like we did at the beginning of the year.
It got off to a rough start against James Madison. You guys fall in 4. One of the bright spots, though, Kristen Fisher had an all-around game that was fantastic. 16 kills, 13 digs. She blocked 5. She was amazing once again and continues to just put up remarkable numbers this season.
Sure, and she does. And she just continues to be the go-to over and over, and the setters are extremely comfortable setting her. And but like we keep saying, that's not something that we necessarily should be relying on all the way through. And I thought we did a really nice job of spreading the ball around. We didn't have as much success in terms of kills at the other positions, but the distribution was much better this entire weekend. And so, again, it's a work in progress. We never said it was a finished product, and we get back to work on it this week and have opportunities coming up.
It was a tough 5-setter against the home team, UT Chattanooga, as well. You guys jumped out to a big lead, and then it all flipped on you. Tell me just about that match. It was a really exciting match, but tell me about what was the turning point in that match that enabled UTC to come out on top in your mind?
Well, I think UTC never gave up, first of all. I think that's a big turning point in the match. And I don't think that we let up at all. I think we got into a situation in the 3rd set where we were up and they made a push. And, maybe, I don't know, we panicked. I just think we tried too hard to close it out. And UTC was really allowed to take advantage of that. And then the same thing happened in the 4th set. We get in a situation where we feel like maybe we won the match, and all of a sudden that didn't happen, and now we find ourselves playing a 5th set. Well, in the 5th set, on the road, against the home team, that's at best a toss-up, and they really jumped on us early, and we made more than our fair share, I think, of errors heading down the stretches of those games 3, 4, and 5, and that's something that we're certainly addressing, and we're working on that.
It's unfortunate because you had a bunch of pretty good individual performances coming out of that match as well. Fisher had another 25 kills. Rachel Vuxen had 5 aces on service, 54 assists, 2 kills, 2 blocks of her own. Tell me a little bit more about Rachel, about how she's come over, worked into your system, and is such a threat really on all sides and all phases of both offense and defense.
Sure, I mean, she's a very experienced player, and she's coming in, and she does a really nice job, like you said, in many phases of the game. And frankly, I feel like this is a situation right now where the sum of the parts is much better than it was last year, and we're still trying to get the sum of the parts to equal the whole right now. And again, once we get everybody's sum of their parts together, we're in a much better position, a much more have the ability to compete down the stretch of these sets.
Tough way to finish it out against Belmont, too. This one was close, 24-26, 22-25, 24-26 again. I mean, well, I would be saying that you'd be ripping your hair out, but I guess ripping your goatee out. Yeah, I mean, I know that I would have at that point. Despite another great effort from Kristen Fisher, Marie Rita Rova as well, getting into the act. I mean, what can you say? It was just a close match all the way around.
Yeah, 2 or 3 sets. We had game points, and we're not able to convert, and then they tie, and then they go ahead and go on for the win. And overall, I'm sure you can sense a repeating story here, and we put ourselves in position to win, and now we're learning to take advantage of that work that we used to put ourselves in a position. So it became a really interesting yet pervasive reoccurring theme over the weekend, and it's something that, again, we just have to get in the gym and we just have to work it out. That's the only way we can do it. I don't think we need to make wholesale changes. We don't have to make personnel changes. The people and the staff and everything that we have is everything that we need to do well in this conference and do well in our non-conference schedule. But right now we're going through the growing pains, and it's not to be unexpected. That doesn't mean that we like it, but it means we know it's there and we know we need to work on it. And now every opportunity we have, every chance, every match that we play is another opportunity to work our way through that.
And, if we say that it's been a tale of 2 seasons to this point, well, now the 3rd season begins, and like you said, most important, now that we head into conference play, and we're going to get a little bit more into UCF's in-conference schedule in a little bit. But as we take a step back and look at the conference in general, right now, heading into the first week of play in Conference USA, everything kicks off actually tonight, Tuesday night, with Rice taking on Houston. They had a big win against Stephen F. Austin. Houston is finally getting hot. They've won 5 in a row, but Tulsa continues to be the class of the conference right now at 9-2. SMU right with them at 7-3. Memphis, Southern Miss, UTEP all in the mix, and then you guys are still at 7-5. So there's some room to be made up, obviously, but if you're going to make it up, now's the time, right?
Well, the interesting thing is whether we're 7-5 or 10-2 or whatever we are at this point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because when conference season starts, you're 0-0. And for us this year, the way we make the NCAA tournament is how we do in the conference, not in our preseason. I think overall RPI of our preseason schedule probably would preclude us from getting an at-large, even if we were in position to do so. So we have to win the conference. That's the bottom line. If we want to get in the NCAA tournament this year, we're going to have to win the conference. And so we have a chance to do that. And so really anything that was up to this point is nothing more than experience and water under the bridge. It's a chance to start 0-0, and everything starts with Marshall. And if we're going to put ourselves in position to make an NCAA tournament, it starts on Thursday with Marshall.
And I got to ask you also about the schedule. Now, of course, this year, no conference tournament anymore. It's all regular season. So you start off with a doubleheader against Marshall Thursday and Friday up in Huntington, and then you're at Houston for another match, and then back home for Rice. So tell me about how this schedule works. I know that the fan at home may look at it and say, well, you get the return trip from East Carolina coming here to Orlando later on in the season, but it's still a little weird that you play, only two opponents twice. But you like it.
I do. First of all, I'm a big fan of the 20-match season versus having a conference tournament. It's something that we've talked about. I don't want to be in a position where all of a sudden we have a flu outbreak, and we won the regular season, have a flu outbreak, and don't get a bid because of that. So I think your body of work should be judged by your season, not by one weekend. And so here we find ourselves with the 20-match schedule. That's a very expensive endeavor, especially in this conference. And so what we decided to do was take a look at a few cost-containing measures. And what we did is we came up with a series format for 2 of the 10 weekends where we will travel to a team and play them twice, and then a different team will travel to us and play us twice. Now, it's not unheard of. Baseball does it, softball does it, hockey does it, various pro sports do it. So it's not unheard of, not even in volleyball, because men's volleyball does it all the time. And really, I think it's an interesting thing to play a team on one night, make your adjustments overnight, watch the film, and then come back with a different game plan the next day. I think you're going to be surprised. The team that loses the first night may actually have an advantage the next go-round if the 2 teams are somewhat evenly matched. And so I'm looking forward to it because it's going to bring a little bit of coaching and a little bit of strategy and film work and that kind of stuff, game planning back into it. So I'm kind of looking forward to the change, and I hope that the other coaches in the conference are as well.
I guess familiarity also breeds contempt, especially when it occurs within 24 hours.
Sure.
Take a look at the national picture. Like you mentioned, Stanford has taken over the #1 spot as they have ever since Penn State lost. Penn State, despite that one loss, still getting 1 first-place vote.
Yeah, I want to know who you are. Who are you that's doing that? Did you not see the results?
Sarah's raising her hand. I don't think it's you, Sarah. But there are a couple other interesting things to note here, especially when we talk about in-state volleyball. Florida, right there in third place. Their only loss was to Penn State. Nebraska and Hawaii round out the top 5. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about the two big dogs in state. Like I mentioned, Florida State also 9-1, ranked 13th in the AVCA rankings. Tell me about those two teams this year. Have you seen any of them, and of what you've seen, can they compete at that national level?
Florida State definitely can. With the international players that they have and all that experience that they have, they can absolutely compete at the highest level. Now, I haven't seen them play personally this year, so I don't know, but my feeling is that maybe 13 might be a little bit low. We'll find out because they're going to be playing Florida here this week. Yeah. So we'll know by that result exactly where Florida State belongs in the whole scheme of things. Florida I have seen in person. Unfortunately, it was in the Orlando airport. They were on the same flight with us coming back from Tennessee into Orlando, and so we had a chance to, of course, Michelle had a chance to meet up with some old friends, and Eric, the same way, both of them former Gators. So that's the only way that we've seen them, is on the airplane right now. So my feeling is that they're for real because they have Kelly Murphy, and Kelly Murphy makes a whole team really good. She allows other people to play within themselves. And that's exactly what's going on, is Kelly Murphy is shouldering the load for the team, and everybody else has the freedom to be very talented and do very well in their positions because of somebody like Murphy, who you have to keep track of front row and back row. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Florida as a Final Four contender down the stretch this year, especially with Texas being down and some other of the perennial top 6 not in there. Florida certainly steps right in and has the ability to compete with Hawaii and USC and some of those other teams, Washington, for a shot at going to the Final Four.
Do you still see Stanford staying where they are, maybe throughout the whole season, or is there somebody who they definitely have to watch out for?
Well, I think Stanford has to watch out for anybody in that conference because even the so-called slouches or easy matches in that conference have very talented players. We don't know what USC is going to be other than a young group that seems to be doing pretty well. Washington is going to be pretty good. Arizona is better than what they were. So it's going to be a challenge. It's not easy to go undefeated in the Pac-10. And what happens when Stanford loses the Pac-10 match? Does Penn State jump back up ahead of them? I don't know. But I think what happens now is that all the teams are trying to get as much experience as possible and put themselves in position to make a tournament run at the end. And so, I'm a big believer that sometimes dropping one of those matches is not a bad thing.
True. Well, let's take a look now as we get ready to, as we finish up here. Once again, UCF starting conference play at Marshall with the back-to-back coming up on Thursday and Friday. We talked about how familiarity breeds a little bit of contempt. Is there a rivalry between UCF and Marshall? I know that there was always, is there a rivalry between UCF and Marshall on the football field? What about on the volleyball court?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, first of all, the coach and I go way back. I think we have a lot of respect for each other's abilities, and Marshall has been the class of the conference, I think, for a long time. And what's a little bit nerve-wracking is that they've been down this year, and they've dropped some matches probably they wish they didn't drop. And that makes for a caged lion at home. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to play our best up there in order to walk away with wins. So there is a rivalry, and I think what's interesting is, we've played, we played 4 matches, and I want to say 3 of them went 5 games. Yeah. 2 that first year and then 1 more last year. So it is, and I think it's because both teams now have respect for each other, and certainly the coaching staffs have respect for each other, and he has a magnificent ability to make adjustments and switches, and that's why it's going to be a lot of fun going into a back-to-back series match with those guys, because I think Mitch has the ability to make changes when he needs to make changes to be successful.
Well, it's going to be a fun chess match up there in Huntington this weekend. Don't forget to follow UCF on UCFathletics.com, live scoring on Game Tracker as well. Don't forget UCF at Marshall on the 23rd and the 24th. That's Thursday and Friday coming up. Then you travel to Houston on October 1st and the home opener against Rice on October 3rd. Don't forget you can also follow UCF Volleyball on Twitter. Check out the Twitter handle, UCF_volleyball. Coach Dagenais, thanks once again. Best of luck as you start conference play.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, and this has been Holding Court with the Coach Todd Dagenais. I'm Jeff Sharon. We will see you when the Knights return home from West Virginia. Until then, have a great week.